On June 10, 1986, in Simferopol, in the meeting room of the Crimean Regional Court, as they say, the apple had nowhere to fall. The courtroom, designed for 500 people, could not accommodate even half of those who wanted to attend the upcoming meeting. On this day, an open trial began over one of the most cruel punishers of the Great Patriotic War, a native of Crimea, whom the prisoners of concentration camps called Black Fedor. Fedor Demyanovich Fedorenko, with the outbreak of war, was called up as a driver in a company of radio operators. He did not have to fight for long, because already on the 18th day of the war he simply went missing, about which his wife received news a couple of months later. There was no news from Fedor all this time. Apparently, in fact, there was no point in hoping for the best. Years passed, Ars signed the Reichstag, the last shots died down. The sons of Fedorenko have long grown into adult men themselves, and the wife was still faithful to her missing husband, remaining a widow. But, one fine day, the usual way of life was violated by a letter received from the United States. It said that Fedor Demyanovich is alive and well, lives in complete prosperity in the States and really wants to see his family. Arriving at home, Fedorenko, who was alive and did not give any news about himself, did not evoke warm feelings among his relatives. With pleasure he talked about his American mansion, the business of growing roses, and looked with disgust at the life of the now former family in the village. After staying at home for a week, he never once spoke in detail about how it happened that he went missing. There was a battle, he was wounded, he was captured, concentration camps, then he was brought abroad. It was impossible to go home. The NKVD would be considered a traitor, so he remained in America. Yes, but he constantly left this conversation and did not tell the details. Wound really was, as well as captivity. But what he did not talk about was the SS training camp in Poland and further work as a guard in 3 concentration camps. To the Fedorenko family, already being a US citizen, he came in 1974. But, as you understand, the KGB in those days checked such people, who suddenly became Americans, especially thoroughly. They issued him a visa, let him into the country, and put him under surveillance. After Fedorenko arrived in his native Junkoy, he was even summoned for interrogation to the local KGB, but he did not say anything new. He was wounded, captured, and that's it. Fedorenko was sure that his past had long been forgotten and there were no witnesses left. It turned out that this was not at all the case, and just during the days of his stay in Junkoy, a former countryman turned up, who told the beginning of his dark story about Fedorenko after they were captured. It was for this period that I remember Fedorenko. He systematically engaged in the exchange of food, clothing, and tobacco, always for his own benefit. Among the prisoners he was considered a man who could get absolutely everything, because he tried to be friends with the camp guards. In general, the Nazis liked Fedorenko and they sent them with Dorofeyev, who spoke about him above, to the SS training camp in Travniki. By the way, Dorofeyev tried so hard to slander the already not saintly Fedorenko that he also spoke about his career in the protection of the concentration camp, although he hid it for many years. The only difference was that Fedorenko was able to make a real career as a concentration camp guard. Seeing his diligence, unquestioning execution of orders, and at the same time confident calmness and equanimity, Fedorenko was appointed commander, Oberwachtmann, of the SS Guard detachment in the Treblinka concentration camp. Treblinka was an extermination camp. From here, few people were sent to work. They were brought here precisely for destruction. According to various sources, about 800,000 people were killed in Treblinka in a year and a half, and this is only official. The prisoners arriving at Treblinka did not know where they were going. At the station, even the scenery of a real railway station was built with ticket offices, train schedules, and a clock tower. Arriving prisoners were met by the camp orchestra, which immediately, to a cheerful tune, accompanied them to the gas chambers. As the surviving prisoners and former colleagues later said, Fedorenko personally destroyed more than a dozen prisoners, and doing it with haughty self-confidence and a smile on his face. For this, he received such a frightening nickname, Black Fedor. My name is Yakov Savenko, a native of Junkoy. He served as a driver in the Travniki camp. One day, about 500 Jews were brought to us and closed them indoors. A few days later a train came for them and I found out that my countryman, Fedorenko, had come with him. I went to see him. We were sitting in the car, talking, when he suddenly discovered that he had lost a wallet with money. I went and left, like my companions. As it turned out later, one of my colleagues found this wallet, in which there were 3,000 Polish zlotys. This is a lot of money, and the fact that Fedorenko takes away jewelry from prisoners and then sells them, everyone knew, even in other camps. Such fame went after him. He always did everything for his own benefit. But his superiors tolerated him, because he was outwardly very calm and at the same time cruel towards the prisoners. But the war was not eternal, and in 1945 Fedorenko managed to get into the American zone of occupation by bribery. Posing as a prisoner of war, he was able to escape to America, where he received citizenship 2 years later. In the USA, they knew who Fedorenko was and where he served, but then the Americans liked to hide such characters in their homes. Moreover, after Fedorenko's visit to the USSR in 1974, when his fate became finally known, RS sent a request to the United States for his extradition. The Americans refused. They themselves, they say, "We will judge him." They appointed a court, interrogated several times. Well, he was captured. Well, he was guarding. He didn't kill anyone. He was just a driver. Not guilty. Released. Over the next 5 years, the KGB collected bit by bit all the testimony, evidence and everything that could relate to Fedorenko. Evidence of his cold-blooded murders, which he committed daily, sometimes several dozen people, has collected many volumes. For 5 whole years of the titanic work of the investigators, and every year the witnesses did not end, but more and more details of his atrocities surfaced. As a result, after another request, in 1981 Fedorenko was deprived of American citizenship and taken into custody in the United States. But they were not sent to the USSR again, and do you know why? The official union of OUN-UPA veterans in North America stood up for him, and according to their legislation, they are obliged to consider such appeals. Like, he didn't kill, but fought the bloody communist regime and stuff like that. The case stalled again. They even wanted to extradite Fedorenko to Canada, in which the OUN members are beyond any laws, but at the last moment they changed their minds. In 1984, Fedorenko was finally sent to the USSR and placed under house arrest. Having learned from the KGB all the details of his service, the sons wrote a letter to the newspaper Krymskaya Pravda, in which they indicated something like the following: "We do not forgive this grave guilt to our father, who disgraced the honest name of Fedorenko. We renounce him, do not consider him our father. Our mother also supports our decision." The open court session, at which all the testimonies of witnesses and former colleagues were read out, lasted for 9 days. All this time, Fedorenko denied everything, sat with a smile on his lips and wrote something down in a notebook. When the verdict was announced to him, capital punishment, he only said that he did not want to and began to cry. The decision of the court was greeted with applause by those present. The execution of the death sentence Cherny Fedor had to wait almost a year,